Commander Eli Bennett stood at the viewing port of the diplomatic vessel, watching as the massive gas giant Helios and its shimmering moon, Helios Prime, grew larger. After 6 months in deep space travel, they had finally arrived at the last, major stronghold of the Galactic Alliance. The blue-green moon glowed like a jewel against the swirling gold and amber clouds of its parent planet. Under different circumstances, Bennett might have appreciated the beauty. Today, he only saw a fortress on the edge of collapse. "Commander, we're being hailed by Alliance Control," said Lieutenant Page from her communication station. "They're requesting identification and purpose." Bennett straightened his dark blue uniform. "Tell them Earth's diplomatic envoy has arrived as requested. We're here to discuss military assistance." The lieutenant nodded and relayed the message. After a brief pause, she looked up. "They've granted landing clearance, docking Bay 17, as..." Their ship descended through the moon's atmosphere. Bennett saw the scars of war. Defense platforms orbited the moon like metal insects. The cities below were surrounded by energy shields that glimmered in the sunlight. Refugee camps sprawled across once pristine valleys. This was a civilization fighting for its very survival. The ship landed with a gentle bump. Bennett took a deep breath and headed for the exit ramp. This would not be an easy meeting. The Alliance had rejected Earth's offers of help for years, fearful of humanity's reputation for violence. Now, desperation had changed their minds. 4 alien guards waited at the bottom of the ramp. Their tall, slender bodies were covered in iridescent scales, and their 4-fingered hands rested on energy weapons. "Commander Bennett," said the tallest guard, its voice translated through a small device at its throat. "I am Captain Zrel. The Council awaits you." Bennett followed the guards through wide corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. Most moved with purpose, but fear hung in the air like a heavy fog. Many stopped to stare at Bennett. Humans were rare in this part of space. The council chamber was a massive dome with 17 raised platforms, one for each member species of the Alliance. Only 12 were occupied. The others, Bennett knew, represented worlds already lost to the enemy. "The human envoy may approach," announced a deep voice from the central platform. Bennett walked to the center of the chamber and bowed. "Esteemed Council, I bring greetings from Earth and the United Defense Force. We thank you for finally hearing our proposal." "We do not welcome you out of trust, human," said Counselor Vex, a being with gray skin and 8 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. "We welcome you out of necessity. The Void Dominion has taken 5 more systems since we last refused. Your help..." Bennett nodded. "I understand your reservations. Earth's history is not peaceful. The war between Earth and Mars a century ago shocked many in the galaxy. But what you fear about us may be exactly what you need now." He activated a small projector in his hand. Above it appeared the image of insectoid creatures swarming over a planet. "The Void Dominion fights like a perfect machine. They do not fear. They do not retreat. They consume everything in their path with terrible efficiency." Bennett paused. "But they have never faced humans in battle." Counselor Triz, a feathered being with a sharp beak, leaned forward. "Your species lacks the physical strength of the Krell, the psychic abilities of the Volani, or the technological advancement of the Tarmac. Yet you claim you can succeed where they have failed?" "We lack many things," Bennett agreed. "But we possess something the Alliance does not. A unique approach to warfare born from thousands of years of fighting each other. We are adaptable, unpredictable, and when necessary, utterly ruthless." Murmurs spread through the chamber at his final word. Bennett continued. "For 30 years you have fought a conventional war against an unconventional enemy. You have maintained your honor and followed the combat protocols established by the Alliance Charter, and you have lost nearly half your worlds." He expanded the projection to show a fleet of Earth vessels. "The United Defense Force is prepared to deploy our 7th Expeditionary Fleet immediately. 5,000 of our best soldiers with support vessels and equipment. They can be here within 6 months." The oldest counselor, a small being with translucent skin through which pulsed gentle light, spoke softly. "And what do humans want in return for this assistance?" Full membership in the Galactic Alliance after the conflict ends, Bennett replied. Equal trading rights, knowledge exchange, the same benefits as any other member species. The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways Bennett couldn't perceive. There is another matter, said Councillor Vex. Your message mentioned a condition. Bennett nodded. Yes. If we commit our forces, they must be allowed to fight in the human way without being bound by Alliance combat protocols. Our commanders must have tactical freedom. The chamber erupted in objections. The protocols exist to prevent unnecessary suffering. This is barbarism. We cannot abandon our principles even in defeat. The central councillor raised 4 hands, and the chamber fell silent. Commander Bennett, you ask us to compromise the very values that define the Alliance. With respect, Bennett replied, I ask you to survive. The Void Dominion does not recognize your values. They recognize only consumption and expansion. If the Alliance falls, your values die with you. As the council deliberated among themselves, Bennett turned to look out through the chamber's clear dome. In the sky above, defensive satellites tracked incoming objects, constant alerts flashing. On the horizon, he could see the glow of a shield, barrier being repaired after a recent attack. Finally, the central councillor spoke. We will put it to a vote. Bennett waited, his expression neutral while his heart raced. Earth had been trying to join the Alliance for decades. This terrible war might finally open the door, if he could convince them that humanity's darker talents were worth the risk. After what seemed like hours, the votes were tallied. By a margin of 7-5, with 3 abstentions, the Council accepts Earth's offer of military assistance, announced the central councillor. May we not regret this decision. Bennett bowed deeply. Thank you for your trust. I will transmit the authorization immediately. As he left the chamber, Captain Zrel fell in beside him. Is it true what they say about humans? The guard asked. Quietly. What do they say? Bennett replied. That you fight wars against yourselves for reasons no other species would understand. That you developed weapons that could destroy your own world before you reached the stars. Bennett looked at the alien guard. Yes, that's true. Then I hope you are as effective against our enemies as you have been against yourselves, Zrel said. That night, Bennett sent the authorization code to Earth. In response, he received confirmation that Admiral Vera Collins had already prepared the 7th Fleet for deployment. The message ended with 5 words that sent a chill down his spine. We won't fail, whatever it takes. As Bennett watched the stars from his temporary quarters, he thought about the Alliance's fear of human warfare. They had good reason to be afraid. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself learning the lessons it was about to teach the Void Dominion. The Alliance would get the saviors they needed, but they might never look at the stars the same way again. Captain Susan Wright stepped off the transport onto the dusty surface of Proxima Centauri's largest mining colony. 6 months had passed since Commander Bennett secured the Alliance's permission. Now the first wave of human forces had arrived. Wright breathed in the alien air, finding it thin but breathable. Red dust swirled around her boots as she surveyed the defensive perimeter. Proxima Centauri had been under siege for 3 months. The colony's tall, curved buildings showed signs of damage from repeated attacks. Energy barriers flickered weakly. Around the settlement's edges, their power sources nearly exhausted. Captain Wright, called a deep voice. She turned to see an approaching alien figure. Nearly 7 feet tall with gray-green skin and 4 arms, General Zarks moved with the careful precision of a lifelong soldier. His face, with its vertical slit, pupils and ridge of small horns, was unreadable to human eyes, but his body language conveyed weariness. General, Wright saluted. First Company, 7th Expeditionary Fleet reporting for duty. Zark studied the humans unloading their equipment from the transport. 50 Marines in dark battle armor carrying weapons that looked primitive compared to Alliance technology. The general seemed unimpressed. These are all the reinforcements Earth sent? 50 soldiers? Zarks gestured to the colony. The Void Dominion attacks with thousands. We lose dozens of defenders each time. Wright smiled. Quality over quantity, General. My Marines are worth hundreds of your conventional forces, with all due respect. Zarks made a clicking sound that Wright's translator didn't catch. Bold words, Captain. The Alliance Council said we must allow you to fight in your way. What exactly does that mean? Instead of answering directly, Wright pointed to the defensive line. Those barrier positions are too predictable. The enemy has attacked 7 times, always in the same pattern, correct? Yes, Zarks confirmed. They test our shields, find weak points, and pour through. We respond with concentrated fire and push them back. Each time they adapt and push further. Wright nodded. And that's why you're losing. Permission to deploy my forces according to human tactical doctrine? Zarks hesitated, then gave a resigned nod. That is why you are here. Do what? You must. Over the next 12 hours, the human Marines puzzled their Alliance counterparts. Instead of reinforcing the defensive perimeter, they spread out in small teams of 3 to 5. They dug holes in strange places, buried devices around the colony's edges, and modified the energy shields to create deliberate weak points. What are they doing? Asked a young Alliance officer named Cree. Setting traps, replied Sergeant Paul Miller as he buried a mine. The Void expects you to fight fair. We plan to disappoint them. By nightfall, the human modifications were complete. General Zarks called Captain Wright to the command center, a spherical room filled with holographic displays showing the colony and surrounding terrain. Your soldiers have created deliberate vulnerabilities in our defenses, Zarks said, pointing to the glowing display. Explain yourself. Wright stepped to the map. The Void attacks like a perfect machine because you defend like one. Predictable, honorable, by the book. She traced a finger along the perimeter. We're creating temptation, luring them in where we want them. This is not how the Alliance fights wars, protested a tall, feathered commander. And that's why you're losing them, Wright countered. Alliance forces fight with honor, humans fight to win. The command center's alarm suddenly blared. Red warnings flashed across the displays. Void forces approaching from the northern ridge, announced a technician. Estimated 5,000 units. General Zarks turned to Wright. It seems we will test your methods sooner than expected. Wright activated her comm unit. All units, Protocol Scorpion. I repeat, Protocol Scorpion. The defensive positions emptied as Alliance soldiers watched in confusion. The human Marines scattered to hidden locations around the colony, many of them seemingly abandoning their posts. What are they doing? Demanded Zarks as the protective barriers began to fall exactly where Wright had weakened them. Watch, Wright said calmly. The Void forces, insectoid creatures with black exoskeletons and multiple limbs, poured through the gap in the barriers. They moved as one massive organism, flowing toward the colony. As planned, they followed the path of least resistance exactly where Wright wanted them. When nearly 1,000 Void drones had entered the trap zone, Wright pressed a button on her wrist device. Now, the ground beneath the Void forces erupted. Concealed mines detonated, in a precise sequence not to kill but to channel the enemy forces into narrower corridors. As the confused drones redirected, hidden human Marines activated sonic weapons that emitted frequencies specifically calibrated to the Void's communication system. The effect was immediate and shocking. The perfectly coordinated enemy force fragmented into chaotic groups, some attacking each other in confusion. Second phase, Wright ordered. From hidden bunkers, Marines fired specialized rounds that burst over the Void forces, covering them with a sticky substance that hardened on contact. Hundreds of drones found themselves immobilized, their limbs fused together. The Alliance forces watched in stunned silence as the human team methodically cut the Void attack into manageable sections, then eliminated each group with precision. Strikes. This isn't warfare, whispered Cree. It's butchery. General Zark said nothing, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Where previous battles had lasted hours with heavy defender casualties, this one was effectively over in 45 minutes. Not a single human or Alliance soldier had been lost. As the final Void drones retreated in disarray, Wright joined Zarks at the command center. Your methods are... Zarks struggled to find the right word. Effective. Wright finished for him. She pointed to the display showing the retreating enemy forces. "They'll be back, but they'll be cautious now. They don't understand what happened, and that frightens them." "I thought the void didn't feel fear," said Kree. "Everything feels fear," Wright replied. "Even a hive mind, especially when it encounters something it can't predict." Later that evening, as her Marines cleared the battlefield and reset their traps, Wright found General Zarks watching the sunset from a high observation point. "The Alliance Council warned us about humans," Zark said without turning. "They said your kind evolved through endless conflict, that violence shaped your development in ways other species can't understand." Wright stood beside him. "They weren't wrong. Today you violated 7 principles of the Alliance combat protocols. No warnings, no honorable engagement, psychological warfare, environmental manipulation, and saved your colony," Wright added. Zarks finally turned to look at her. "Yes, you saved us, but at what cost to our principles?" Wright looked out over the colony where lights were coming on as darkness fell. Children played in the streets for the first time in months, no longer confined to underground shelters. "With respect, General, principles don't keep children safe. Soldiers do." She gestured to the horizon where the Void forces had retreated. "The Void doesn't fight with honor or follow rules. Against an enemy like that, principle is a luxury." Zarks was silent for a long moment. "The rest of your fleet arrives soon?" "Within the week. Admiral Collins is bringing the main force. More soldiers like you?" Wright smiled slightly. "The Marines you saw today are our diplomats, General. The real fighters haven't arrived yet." Zarks made that untranslatable clicking sound again, but this time Wright thought she detected something new in it, a mix of relief and apprehension. "Then perhaps," said the alien general, "defeat is not as certain as we feared." Major Alan Pierce stood with his arms crossed, watching the holographic display with growing frustration. 2 weeks had passed since the main human fleet arrived, and Pierce now found himself in yet another strategic meeting that was going nowhere. The circular command room on the Alliance flagship buzzed with tense voices. "This is the 3rd time we've had this same argument," Pierce said, his voice cutting through the noise. "The Void forces are regrouping at Sector 7. We need to hit them, now before they recover." The Alliance Admiral Tekken, a towering blue-skinned being with elaborate gill structures along his neck, shook his head. "We cannot abandon our defensive positions around the Eridani system. It's a key supply route." Pierce pointed to a different section of the star map. "The Void doesn't care about your supply routes. They're building a new hive cluster here in the asteroid belt. If we don't destroy it now, they'll have 10,000 more drones by next week." "You suggest we leave civilian populations undefended," said Commander Lear, another Alliance officer. "I suggest we kill the enemy at its source, instead of waiting for it to come to us," Pierce countered. He turned to Admiral Vera Collins, who had been quietly observing the exchange. Collins nodded slightly. "Major Pierce will lead a strike team to the asteroid belt. I'll provide 3 assault ships." Without Alliance approval, Tekken's gills flared in alarm. "With all due respect, Admiral," Collins said, "our agreement with the Alliance Council gives human forces tactical freedom. We're not asking for permission." The meeting ended with tension hanging in the air. Outside the command room, Pierce fell in step beside Collins as they walked through the curved corridors of the Alliance vessel. "They still don't understand what we're up against," Pierce said. Collins kept her eyes forward. "They understand, they just don't think like we do. The Alliance built a civilization without experiencing the kind of warfare that shaped human history. They've never had to be ruthless to survive. We're doing this for them, whether they like it or not," Pierce said. "Just make sure you succeed, Major," Collins replied. "Every time we break their rules, we need to prove it was worth it." 3 hours later, Pierce stood on the bridge of the assault ship Valiant. His strike team consisted of 120 human Special Forces troops and, surprisingly, a small group of Alliance volunteers led by Kree, the young officer who had witnessed Captain Wright's tactics on Proxima Centauri. "I didn't expect any Alliance soldiers to join us," Pierce said to Kree as they approached the asteroid belt. "Not all of us are bound by tradition," Kree replied. His feathered crest rippled in what Pierce had learned was a sign of determination. "Some of us simply want to win." Pierce nodded, feeling a new respect for the alien officer. Then let's show you how humans hunt. The 3 human ships did not announce their arrival. They killed their engines and drifted into the asteroid field, using the natural debris as cover. When they spotted the Void construction, a massive structure of black organic material spreading across several asteroids, Pierce ordered all troops into drop pods. No communication once we launch, he instructed. The Void can detect transmissions. From this point, we operate in pre-planned sequence. Synchronize timers, now. The drop pods ejected silently, small dark objects barely visible against the backdrop of space. Inside his pod, Pierce felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as it fell toward the target. This wasn't honorable combat. This was hunters versus prey. The pods landed across the hive structure with precision. As human soldiers emerged in their sealed combat suits, they moved with practiced efficiency, planting explosive charges at key structural points. The Void drones, unprepared for an attack deep in their territory, responded slowly at first. Pierce led his team through twisting organic tunnels mapping the hive's interior. Behind him, Kree and his Alliance soldiers followed, their expressions hidden behind breather masks, but their body language revealing their shock at the inside of a Void hive. Walls pulsed with fluid-filled vessels and half-formed drones hung in gestation chambers. We're not just fighting soldiers, Pierce explained as they moved. We're fighting a biological factory. This entire structure is one organism. A swarm of drones suddenly poured from a side tunnel. Pierce's team reacted instantly, deploying a defensive formation that herded the creatures into a choke point. The Alliance soldiers fought well but methodically. The humans fought like they were possessed, using every dirty trick and advantage. While the battle distracted the hive's defenses, other human teams reached the central node, a pulsating mass of neural tissue that coordinated the entire structure. They planted their most powerful charges there and began their retreat. Pierce checked his timer. 2 minutes to detonation, fall back. As they fought their way back to the extraction point, Pierce noticed Kree hesitate when faced with injured Void drones. Don't show mercy, Pierce shouted, putting a bullet through a wounded drone's head. They wouldn't show you any. Back on the assault ships, they watched as the charges detonated in sequence. The hive structure broke apart, spewing debris and dying drones into space. Pierce's face showed no emotion as he watched thousands of enemy units die at once. A clean operation, he noted. Minimal casualties on our side. Kree stood beside him, watching the destruction. On Proxima Centauri, Captain Wright used traps and tactics. This was different. Wright had to defend a fixed position, Pierce explained. This was an extermination mission. Different objectives required different methods. When they returned to the Alliance fleet, Admiral Collins was waiting with a grim smile. The success of the mission was clear, but Alliance officers kept their distance from the returning humans, watching them with a mix of relief and unease. Dr. Linda Ortiz and Dr. Kevin Walsh, the lead human scientists assigned to the war effort, approached Pierce as his team disembarked. We need samples, Dr. Ortiz said without preamble. Did you recover any biological material from the hive? Pierce handed her a sealed container. Neural tissue as requested. Not easy to get. Dr. Walsh examined the container. This could be the key. We've been studying void biology, looking for weaknesses we can exploit on a larger scale. What kind of weaknesses? Asked Kree, who had joined them. The kind the Alliance Ethical Committee would never approve, Dr. Ortiz said flatly. Biological agents designed to attack the Void's nervous system. Essentially, a tailored plague. Kree's feathers flattened against his head. That would violate at least 3 Alliance treaties on biological warfare. Which is why we're not telling the Alliance, Pierce said. Not until we have something that works. Later that day, Alliance Admiral Tekken confronted Admiral Collins on the command deck. Your Major Pierce disobeyed direct orders about engaging the enemy, Tekken said. Collins faced him calmly. He eliminated a threat that would have produced thousands of new enemy combatants. The mission was a complete success. The methods matter, Tekken insisted. The Alliance has standards for how we conduct warfare. Standards that we're losing you this war, Collins replied. 3 systems have been retaken since human forces arrived. Results speak for themselves. At what cost? Tekken asked. I've seen your soldiers in action now. They show no restraint, no honor. They fight like the enemy we face. Collins stepped closer. The difference, Admiral, is that we fight like monsters so your civilians don't have to become them to survive. You should be grateful we're willing to carry that burden. As she walked away, Collins knew the tension between human and Alliance forces would only grow stronger. The aliens wanted salvation without moral compromise. They would soon learn that war rarely offered such clean choices. In her private quarters, Collins reviewed reports from all human units now deployed across Alliance space. Every commander told the same story: initial resistance from Alliance forces, followed by reluctant acceptance of human methods once the results became clear. The tide of war was turning, one brutal victory at a time. 6 months had passed since the first human forces arrived in Alliance space. Colonel Frank Grayson stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking down at the blue-green world of Terra Nova. Once a thriving colony with 16 million Alliance citizens, now it was completely overrun by the Void Dominion. Black structures covered entire continents, visible even from orbit. Magnify Sector 4, Grayson ordered. The view screen zoomed in on a sprawling city. Void drones moved through the streets like ants, stripping buildings for materials to feed their endless expansion. Among the structures, Grayson could see containment pods where colonists were kept alive, not as prisoners, but as living food. Sources. How many survivors are estimated? Asked Lieutenant Russo, Grayson's second-in-command. Intelligence suggests around 3 million, Grayson replied. The rest have been processed. Russo's face paled. Can we save them? Grayson was silent for a long moment. No, we can't. He opened a channel to Admiral Collins's flagship. Admiral, this is Colonel Grayson. I've completed my assessment of Terra Nova. Collins's voice came through clearly. Your recommendation, Colonel? The infestation is too deep. Tactical strikes would be ineffective. I recommend Protocol Omega. There was a pause. You understand what you're asking for? I do, Admiral. The Alliance Council will need to approve. With respect, Admiral, Grayson interrupted. They'll debate while more colonists are processed. We need to act now. Another pause. Very well. Authorization granted. May God forgive us both. Grayson closed the channel and turned to his crew. Prepare the Nova package. All ships to minimum safe distance. As the fleet pulled back, Grayson watched the planet grow smaller on the view screen. He had made hard decisions before, but nothing like this. In his 20 years of military service, he had never ordered the complete destruction of an inhabited world. 4 hours later, the Nova package, a combination of antimatter warheads and gravity disruptors, descended into Terra Nova's atmosphere. When it detonated, the blast tore through the planet's crust, igniting the atmosphere. Grayson watched in silence as the blue-green world turned orange, then white, as fire consumed everything. Void hives, structures, and the 3 million colonists they had no way to save. News of Terra Nova's destruction spread quickly. On the Eadir, Alliance capital moon of Helios Prime, the Council convened an emergency session. Commander Eli Bennett, still serving as the political liaison between human forces and the Alliance, stood before them. You burned an entire world, said Counselor Vex, his 8 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. 3 million Alliance citizens, dead by human hands. 3 million citizens who were already lost, Bennett replied. The Void was using them as living incubators. We gave them a quicker death than the one awaiting them. That was not your decision to make. Counselor Triz's feathers stood on end with anger. This is genocide. Bennett kept his composure. The Void had transformed 90% of the planet's surface. Our scientists confirmed that the neural infection in the colonists had progressed too far for recovery. They weren't civilians anymore. They were part of the Void. The oldest counselor leaned forward. Even if what you say is true, Colonel, Grayson should have consulted this council before taking such extreme action. By the time you reached a decision, the Void would have completed a new hive cluster capable of producing 600,000 combat drones, Bennett countered. Those drones would have been deployed against Proxima Centauri next week. Millions more would have died. The council chamber fell silent. Bennett continued. I understand your outrage, but look at the strategic situation. He activated a holographic display in the center of the room. 6 months ago, the Alliance had lost 17 systems and was on the verge of collapse. Today, we've reclaimed 8 systems and established a stable front. The display showed a map of Alliance space, with human fleet positions marked in blue and Void territories in red. The red area had noticeably shrunk. Human methods are working, Bennett said. For the first time in 30 years, the Void is retreating. The debate raged for hours. In the end, the council remained divided. Half wanted to immediately revoke the agreement with Earth. The other half, while disturbed by human tactics, couldn't deny the results. As the session ended without resolution, Intelligence Officer Olivia Hayden rushed into the chamber. Her usual calm demeanor was replaced by urgent excitement. Commander Bennett, we've made a breakthrough, she said, barely acknowledging the council members. I need you to see this immediately. In a secure analysis room, Hayden showed Bennett data collected from multiple Void encounters across Alliance space. We've been monitoring Void drone behavior patterns across all engagements, she explained. There's a pattern we never noticed before. Look here and here. She pointed to seemingly random data points that formed a subtle pattern. The Void isn't just a hive mind. It has a central intelligence directing everything. Bennett studied the information. You're saying there's a brain behind it all? A queen or leader? Not exactly, Hayden said. More like a central processing hub. When human forces destroyed the Terra Nova hive, we detected this energy pulse. She displayed a recording of a strange signal emanating from the planet just before its destruction. This signal went somewhere. You can trace it? Not yet. But I think we can force it to reveal itself. Hayden leaned forward. We need to capture a live Void commander drone, not destroy it. Capture it. Bennett's eyes widened. That's never been done. Precisely why it might work. If we can study a living commander, we might find a way to locate the central intelligence. What would you need? A specialized team, access to Void territory, and Hayden hesitated. Alliance permission to conduct experimental procedures on a sentient being. Bennett understood immediately. They'll call it torture. I call it survival, Hayden replied. When Bennett brought the proposal to the Alliance Council, the reaction was as expected. Absolutely not. Counselor Vex slammed all 4 hands on the table. What you describe violates every principle of sentient rights. It is barbaric. The Void has consumed billions of your people, Bennett argued. They show no mercy, take no prisoners. This may be our only chance to find their central control point. The leader of the Tholian delegation, a crystalline being who rarely spoke, raised its voice. If we descend to such methods, what separates us from the enemy we fight? We lose our soul as a civilization. You can't protect your civilization's soul if your civilization doesn't survive, Bennett responded. In the end, the council remained deadlocked. But Admiral Collins, exercising the tactical freedom granted in the original agreement, authorized Hayden's mission anyway. The rift between human and Alliance forces deepened. Many Alliance crews requested transfers away from human ships. Some species recalled their military units entirely, unwilling to be associated with human methods. Yet as the Void continued to retreat, a growing number of Alliance soldiers began to adopt human tactics. They saw the results and made their choice. Victory over principle. That night, Bennett stared out his window at the streets of the Alliance capital. Children played freely, no longer afraid of imminent attack. Businesses had reopened. Life continued. They hate our methods, he whispered to himself, but they love what those methods give them. He wondered if humanity's darkest gift to the galaxy might be teaching it the terrible price of peace. Commander Richard Stowe checked his equipment one final time as the stealth ship drifted silently through the darkness of deep space. His mission was simple in concept, but nearly impossible in execution. Penetrate deep into void territory, locate the Central Intelligence controlling the hive mind, and report its position back to the Alliance fleet. 10 minutes to drop point, the pilot announced over the comm system. Stowe looked around at his team. 12 human Special Forces operators, and 3 Alliance volunteers, the only ones willing to join what many considered a suicide mission. Among them was Sergeant Maria Lopez, a combat veteran with more confirmed void kills than anyone in the human fleet. "Remember," Stowe said to the team, "this is strictly reconnaissance. We find the target, we mark it, we get out. No heroics." The Alliance officer, a slender being named Rawl with blue skin that seemed to absorb light, spoke up. "My instruments detect unusual energy patterns ahead. The void presence here is different." The ship slowed as it approached a debris field, the remnants of a destroyed Alliance colony. Twisted metal and frozen bodies drifted among the wreckage. The human soldiers showed no reaction, but the Alliance volunteers visibly tensed. "This was Outpost Harmony," one of them whispered. 10,000 civilians. "Focus on the mission," Stowe said firmly. "We can't help the dead." The ship docked with a large piece of debris that provided cover from void patrols. The team exited through the airlock in their specialized stealth suits. These suits, designed by human and Alliance engineers working together, bent light around the wearer and masked heat signatures. Stowe led them through the debris field using the floating wreckage as stepping stones. Every few minutes, void patrol ships passed nearby, their organic hulls pulsing with eerie blue light. Each time, the team froze in place, invisible against the backdrop of destruction. After 3 hours of slow progress, they reached their first objective, a small void communication relay. Olivia Hayden's research had determined that these relays formed a network that eventually led to the Central Intelligence. Sergeant Lopez attached a passive scanner to the relay. The device, no larger than her thumb, began recording the signal patterns flowing through the structure. "Signal captured," she reported. "Direction confirmed. The next relay is deeper in void space, bearing 27 Mark IV. For 6 days, the team moved from relay to relay, working their way toward the source of the command signals. They passed destroyed worlds and saw horrors that would haunt them forever. Once beautiful planets now covered in black void structures. Harvesting ships carrying thousands of captured beings toward processing centers. On the 7th day, disaster struck. As they approached the 5th relay, a void patrol changed course unexpectedly. Rawl, the Alliance officer, was caught in the open. The patrol ship fired instantly. Rawl's body disintegrated in a flash of energy. "Cover blown," Stowe shouted. "Defensive positions." The team scattered as more void ships converged on their location. Lopez grabbed the data module containing their findings and tossed it to Stowe. "Get that back to the fleet," she yelled over the comm. "We'll hold them off." Stowe hesitated only a moment before nodding. The mission came first, always. As he and 2 others broke away, Lopez led the remaining team in a diversionary attack. They fired specialized EMP weapons that disrupted void neural networks, causing momentary confusion in the enemy forces. Stowe's group fled through the debris field, pursued by void drones. One of his team was hit and fell behind. When Stowe looked back, he saw the soldier surrounded by void creatures that tore through his suit and began feeding. "Don't look back," he told his remaining teammate. "Keep moving." After hours of evasion, they reached the extraction point where their ship waited. Only Stowe and 1 other human soldier plus a single Alliance volunteer had survived. As the ship accelerated away from void space, Stowe received an emergency transmission. It was Lopez, her signal weak and breaking up. "Commander, found it. 3 locations, not 1. The transmission cut off abruptly. Stowe tried to re-establish contact but failed. Lopez and the others were gone, but they had succeeded. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. When Stowe's ship returned to Alliance space, he was immediately taken to the command center, where Admiral Collins and the Alliance leaders waited. "Report, Commander," Collins ordered. Stowe uploaded the data. "Audio." A holographic display appeared showing 3 points of light in different sectors of void-controlled space. "The Central Intelligence isn't a single entity," Stowe explained. "It's distributed across these 3 locations, what we're calling nexus points. Each controls a different aspect of the void: reproduction, resource gathering, and military coordination." "Can they be destroyed?" asked General Zarks, who had become a reluctant supporter of human methods after seeing their effectiveness. "Yes," Stowe replied, "but not easily. Each nexus is located on a planetoid with defenses unlike anything we've encountered. And they're linked. If one is attacked, the others will know immediately." Admiral Collins studied the display. "Then we hit all 3 simultaneously." The Alliance Admiral Tekken shook his head. "Impossible. We don't have enough ships to mount 3 separate assaults of that magnitude." Stowe cleared his throat. "There's something else you need to see." He played the visual recordings from their mission. The room fell silent as they watched the footage of harvested worlds, processing, centers, and mass graves. "This isn't just war," Stowe said quietly. "This is extinction. If we don't stop the void now, there won't be an Alliance left to save." One of the Alliance counselors spoke up. "What happened to your team, Commander?" Stowe's face remained expressionless, but his voice tightened. "They gave their lives to bring us this information. All of them." "Most." Stowe paused. "Sergeant Lopez was captured. Her last transmission indicated she found the 3rd Nexus location." "Captured?" The counselor leaned forward. "Then she might still be alive." "No, sir." Stowe's voice was flat. "The void doesn't take prisoners. They extract neural information, then process the body. Lopez knew the protocols. She would have activated her neural scrambler before capture. The neural scrambler was a small device implanted in every human soldier. When activated, it erased the person's memory and knowledge before killing them painlessly. It was considered more merciful than what the void would do. Such devices are forbidden by Alliance law," the counselor said, horrified. "And that's why you keep losing soldiers and information to the enemy," Collins replied. "Our people don't fear death. They fear becoming weapons against their own kind." As the debate continued, Stowe slipped away to the medical bay. His wounds were minor, but the weight of losing his team pressed down on him. He found himself next to the only other survivor from the ground team, the Alliance volunteer who had proven as tough and determined as any human soldier. "In all my years," the alien said quietly, "I never understood humans. Your history is filled with violence against your own kind. You fight over resources, territory, even ideas." Stowe nodded. "That's true." "Now I understand," the alien continued. "You've been preparing for this enemy your entire existence. While we built a peaceful society, you trained for war against yourselves. That training made you ready for the void." Stowe considered this. "Maybe. Or maybe we're just what the universe needs when peaceful solutions fail." The alien placed a 4-fingered hand on Stowe's shoulder. "The others on my world call humans monsters. But I have seen the real monsters now, and I am grateful the monsters are on our side." Stowe closed his eyes. Lopez and the others had died believing their sacrifice would make a difference. Now it was up to him to ensure it did. Admiral Vera Collins stood before the combined forces of the human fleet and their Alliance allies. The massive hangar bay of her flagship was filled to capacity. On the main view screen behind her, 3 targets were highlighted against the backdrop of space. The void nexus points identified by Commander Stowe's mission. "This is it," Collins said, her voice carrying across the silent room. "The opportunity we've been waiting for. One coordinated strike against all 3 targets simultaneously. If we succeed, the Void Dominion falls. If we fail, there won't be a second chance." She gestured to the tactical display. "The plan requires 3 strike teams. Each will deploy antimatter warheads at the core of their assigned nexus. The difficulty is synchronization. All three must be hit within minutes of each other or the void will adapt. General Zark stepped forward. Once a skeptic of human methods, he had become one of their strongest supporters after seeing his homeworld liberated by human forces. The Alliance fleet will provide cover for the human strike teams, Zarks announced. We will draw the void's attention while the human ships approach their targets. A ripple of conversation spread through the gathered soldiers. This would be the largest coordinated military action in the history of the Alliance, and the most dangerous. Admiral Collins touched a control panel, and the image changed to show a new weapon design. Thanks to Drs. Walsh and Ortiz, we have developed a technology that will help us succeed. These aren't just antimatter warheads. They're designed to create artificial singularities. Black holes that will consume the nexus points entirely. A hush fell over the room. Even among the human forces, this level of destructive power was shocking. Creating artificial black holes violated numerous Alliance treaties and risked destabilizing entire star systems. I know what you're thinking, Collins continued. This weapon crosses a line. But the void crossed that line when it began consuming entire civilizations. Sometimes, to defeat a monster, you must be willing to become something monstrous yourself. Shio surveyed the room. I need volunteers to lead each strike team. This is a one-way mission. The singularities will form faster than any ship can escape. Whoever delivers these weapons won't be coming back. Without hesitation, Captain Susan Wright stepped forward. I'll take Nexus 1. Colonel Frank Grayson was next. Nexus 2 is mine. To everyone's surprise, General Zarks himself volunteered for the third team. My people have fought this enemy for 30 years. I will see this through to the end. As the meeting concluded and preparations began, Commander Eli Bennett found himself standing with Admiral Collins on the observation deck. Below them, ships and crews readied for what might be their final battle. A year ago, the Alliance wouldn't even allow human warships in their space, Bennett remarked. Now they're following us into what amounts to a suicide mission. Collins nodded. They learned what we've always known. Survival sometimes requires sacrifice. And after? Bennett asked. If we win? Collins looked at him. Then we help them rebuild. Show them that humans aren't just good at destruction. 12 hours. Later, the combined fleet jumped into position. The three strike teams separated, each heading toward their designated target while the main fleet engaged void defenses. Captain Wright led her team toward Nexus 1. Her small, fast ship was painted black, designed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them. As they approached the massive planetoid that housed the Nexus, void defenders swarmed to meet them. Stay on course, Wright ordered, as her ship rocked from enemy fire. All power to forward shields. On the second front, Colonel Grayson's ship took heavy damage breaking through the void defensive line. Half his crew was dead, but they pressed on, the antimatter device secured in the ship's core. Engine 3 is gone, reported his lieutenant. We're losing speed. Reroute all non-essential power, Grayson ordered. We only need to reach the surface. At Nexus 3, General Zarks, accompanied by a small team of Alliance veterans and human advisors, fought through waves of void drones. Their ship, a hybrid of Alliance and human technology, pushed deeper into enemy territory than any Alliance vessel had ever gone. The humans were right, Zarks told his crew as they approached their target. Honor means nothing if your people are extinct. On the command ship, Admiral Collins tracked all three teams. Strike Team 1 has breached the outer defenses. Strike Team 2 is taking heavy fire but still advancing. Strike Team 3 is on approach. She opened a channel to all three teams. Remember, synchronized detonation is critical. On my mark, activate the countdown sequences. Captain Wright's ship crashed onto the surface of Nexus 1. The impact killed a third of her remaining crew, but the ship remained intact enough to serve its purpose. As void drones swarmed over the hull, trying to cut their way inside, Wright's team moved the antimatter device to the deployment position. Colonel Grayson's situation was more desperate. His ship had been crippled before reaching the planetoid. They were forced to use the emergency thrusters to make a controlled crash landing 2 miles from the ideal target point. We'll never reach the designated coordinates now, his lieutenant, said. Grayson looked at the antimatter device, then at his few surviving crew members. Then we'll take it there on foot. In the vacuum of space, wearing damaged combat suits, Grayson's team began the impossible journey, carrying the device while fighting off void attackers. General Zark's ship managed a cleaner landing. As they prepared the device, he received Collins's transmission about synchronization. "Admiral," he reported, "we are in position and ready." Wright's team was ready as well. Only Grayson had not confirmed. "Colonel Grayson, report," Collins demanded. Static, then a breathless response. "Almost. There. Need 2 more minutes." Collins made the hardest decision of her career. "We can't wait. All teams, begin countdown. 90 seconds to detonation. On." Nexus 1, Captain Wright set the timer. "It's been an honor," she told her team. "What we do here today saves billions." On Nexus 3, General Zarks and his crew stood proudly around their device as the countdown began. Among them was the Alliance officer who had volunteered for Stowe's reconnaissance mission. "The Alliance will remember your sacrifice," Zarks told the humans on his team. On Nexus 2, Colonel Grayson heard the order with despair. They were still too far from the target. "We're not going to make it," he realized. Then, from the shadows of a nearby ridge, a figure appeared. Battered, bleeding, but unmistakably human. Sergeant Maria Lopez, who everyone had presumed dead. After Stowe's mission, "Colonel," she called, her voice weak but determined, "I can take it from here." Grayson didn't ask how she had survived or escaped. There was no time. He handed over the device, and Lopez, who had spent weeks as a prisoner mapping the Nexus from the inside, knew exactly where to place it. "Go," she said. "Get as far as you can." Grayson hesitated, then nodded. "The fleet needs to know you completed the mission." As the 3 devices counted down to 0, Admiral Collins addressed the combined fleet. "All ships prepare for immediate jump to safe distance on my mark." In the final seconds, Captain Wright closed her eyes and thought of Earth. Colonel Grayson's team ran for their ship, knowing they wouldn't escape in time but trying anyway. General Zark stood tall, his Alliance crew and human advisors united in their final moments. 3 flashes of impossible brightness lit up the void of space, followed by utter darkness as the fabric of reality tore open at each nexus point. Where massive planetoids had stood, nothing remained but newly formed singularities, consuming everything in their gravitational pull. Throughout Alliance space, void forces suddenly stopped, then fell into disarray. Without the central intelligence to direct them, the hive mind fractured into confused, uncoordinated segments. 1 month later, Commander Eli Bennett stood in the rebuilt council chamber on Helios Prime. The war was over. The remaining void forces had been systematically eliminated, no longer a unified threat without their controlling intelligence. "The Alliance owes humanity a debt we can never repay," said the Central Counselor. "Your people saved us, at great cost to yourselves." Bennett nodded. "We did what we had to do. What we've always done throughout our history. Fight to survive." "And now?" asked Counselor Vex. "What role will humanity play in a peaceful galaxy?" Bennett looked around the chamber. "We'll help rebuild what was lost, and perhaps teach the Alliance that strength isn't just about weapons or tactics. It's about being willing to make hard choices when there are no good options." As he left the chamber, Bennett glanced at a memorial being constructed in the central plaza. It would bear the names of all who gave their lives in the final battle, both human and Alliance. At its center would stand 3 figures cast in eternal bronze: Wright, Grayson, and Zarks, former enemies united in humanity's most essential lesson, that sometimes survival demands terrible sacrifice. The stars shone peacefully overhead, no longer harboring an existential threat. Defeat had once been certain, until the ruthless human soldiers arrived,